The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
From Mallory Square in Key West to the Governor's Mansion in Tallahassee and all points beyond, you're listening to the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com, your source for all things related to the craft beer community in the Sunshine State. And now your host, Dave Butler.
Welcome back to another episode of the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com. This is Dave, your host and author. And let me just say that we do here at the podcast and the Florida Podcast Network hope that everybody was able to make it out of Hurricanes Helene and Milton safe and sound. Unfortunately, the state is no stranger to hurricanes, and we kind of got a 1-2 punch, unfortunately, especially on Florida's Gulf Coast. There's a number of breweries that were hit pretty significantly. And as of this recording, I think there are some that still have not reopened yet, unfortunately. And so we definitely send all of our love and support and hope that we can send other support very, very soon. No stranger to hurricanes, unfortunately, is the Fort Myers area, and that is where we are going to be for the next couple of episodes. It's kind of an interesting story. If you have been a longtime listener to the podcast, you've actually seen both of these businesses on our podcast before. One, Fort Myers Brewing, we did interview them a couple of years ago about their spiked hard seltzers and the awards that they have won with that. And we've also interviewed Wicked Dolphin as they were about to release a collaboration rum with, well, it was Due South Brewing. Unfortunately, they have since gone away. But that partnership with other breweries in the state has continued. And as you can probably guess, that the next rum in the series is going to be a Wicked Dolphin Fort Myers Brewing collaboration. And so we finally made it over to Fort Myers Brewing. It's been an interview that I've been wanting to do for quite some time, but now it finally happened. And instead of interviewing them separately, I actually decided to interview Fort Myers Brewing and Wicked Dolphin Distillery together. And it's actually kind of interesting. They're both in the same area of the state. They're both in Lee County, really not that far away from each other. They both got started roughly about the same time. They really were the first in the area in that sort of geographical region, especially the county, to be doing what they were doing. And so there were a lot of similarities between the two stories, and I thought that it was a great way to kind of bring a little something different to the interviews. So on today's episode, you're going to be hearing from a couple of people. From Fort Myers Brewing, we have Jen Whyte, who is the co-founder and co-owner. Her husband was running around fixing some stuff during the interview day. So unfortunately, he was not able to join us as much as I was able to wave hi to Rob. Hey, how you doing? We also sat with TJ Jewell, their VP of operations, an all-around amazing person. And from the Wicked Dolphin side, as much as I've been desperately trying to get their founder, Joanna Lardo, on the podcast, great friend of the show, but she actually had to step out of town on a last-minute voyage to talk to some people. She did send Joseph Termini, their director of sales, and their vice president along to give us the Wicked Dolphin story. He actually brought along a bottle of one of the last remaining bottles of their current collaboration with St. Pete's Green Bench Brewing, also people that you've heard on the podcast. But this first episode, the first part of it, is really the beginnings of both of their operations. Why they decided to open up shop in Lee County in Southwest Florida, being the first to produce what they produced in that specific county, in Lee County, and what it took to really create a following almost from scratch for their particular products and businesses and so on. So Fort Myers Brewing, Wicked Dolphin Distillery. Here we go. Enjoy. Why Southwest Florida? This is not the most populated area in the state, but you have not only built your businesses here, but they've done very, very well. Why Southwest Florida?
I'll jump in first. So Wicked Dolphin, we actually are family owned and operated. So we've all migrated down from New York. Our owner Joanne actually ended up in Cape Coral, officially retiring, and just loved the community, the growth down here, and then started Wicked Dolphin. That's how we ended up landing here. I mean, we're a place where everyone vacations, and we live here. We're very lucky.
Rob and I, we moved down here. I grew up in Michigan and my husband grew up in San Diego, California. And my parents happened to live in Southwest Florida. And we moved here. We moved about a mile and a half away from where Fort Myers Brewing currently sits. And when we moved here, there weren't any breweries in town. And we thought it wasn't possible to put a brewery with a tap room. We thought that there might be some legalities around that. And when we figured out that we could do it, we decided that's how we were going to meet some friends. We both worked from home, so we didn't really know a lot of people in the community. And we opened right in our backyard.
It's kind of interesting. And was it a difficult jump to decide to open a business where, obviously Tampa's got a lot of them, but Tampa's a couple hours away and it's almost all, another world in a lot of different respects. Was it difficult to convince the right people that needed to be convincing that, yes, this is a community that can sustain a business like this?
No. To be frank, Rob and I, we opened with 1,500 square feet. We opened really small. He turned some old dairy tanks into a brew system, literally built the burner underneath this 7-barrel vessel. And we started really, really small and really, really humble. We never imagined we would grow to be the size we've grown to. We opened with the thought that our tap room would be open on Fridays and Saturdays. We'd brew on Sundays and we'd keep our day jobs. Thankfully that wasn't the case because that was a surefire way to burn out. But we opened to meet some friends, to be a part of a community. And what's happened since then has been truly just a blessing. And it's an honor to be a part of the Southwest Florida community, to be a part of the beer community. Yeah, we feel really blessed and lucky.
That's amazing. And it's got to be even more difficult for a distillery because not only were there not the number of distilleries that you see today, not just in Southwest Florida, but for the entire state, but you have considerably more hurdles to jump through to open than what you had experienced with the brewery, from what I've heard.
Yes, without a doubt. So it's kind of first of its kind, kind of trailblazing. So a lot of, especially Cape Coral or the surrounding area, what to exactly do to make sure, obviously with a still and manufacturing alcohol or high proof spirits, definitely had some different hurdles to jump through. Joanne actually ended up going up to Tallahassee and actually getting a couple bills switched. So at first we weren't even allowed to have anyone even at the distillery or even to walk through the doors, and we couldn't sell any bottles at the distillery. She was able to change a couple of laws by some lobbying, and now they are able. First year, it was you could purchase one bottle. We would have to keep a very detailed list of it all. Then it switched to 2, 3, and now it's wide open. But there was a lot of different restrictions that we had to go through. A lot of lessons learned, or first of its kind.
I want to talk a little bit about actually opening and working with the county, because we have.
That's always a big question that I always ask, because I've heard so many amazing stories about municipalities and counties that are like, here is money, open up a brewery, please. And then I've had brewers that have told me that the city has come to them and said, you make something I don't like, I cannot wait to shut you down.
Our county has been excellent. Lee County has been excellent. They haven't come to us and said, hey, we'll give you some money, but they have been absolutely excellent. When Rob and I decided that this was going to be our facility where we're sitting right now, we called up the county and we got put in touch with the person at the time who was in charge of zoning. She set up a meeting with us. We went down to the county building, sat with her. It was her, Pam and Nettie were their names who we met with. And when we said we wanted to open a brewery with a tap room, she said, "You want to put a bar in the back of an industrial park?" And Rob said to her, "Well, think about a winery. Have you been to a winery?" Their eyes lit up and they said, "Absolutely." I said, "Well, people want to come and kind of see the process and be a part of the process, and yes, sample the product and then take some home." And they had this huge book of codes in front of them. And as soon as he said that, they started flipping through that book and they said, "We know exactly how we can do this. We'll do it with an administrative amendment. You won't have to go through the whole committee hearing. It'll be, I think it was $1,000. It'll take a couple weeks. We'll help you with the process." And so Rob and I came back. We didn't have to hire any consultants or any engineers. We put together that administrative amendment. They said to call them when we were bringing it in. We did that. They came down and looked at it and said, "Everything seems to be in order." We submitted it. And a few weeks later, we had our zoning changed to allow for the tap room to be connected to the manufacturing.
I have known so many breweries that would kill for a story like that.
It was incredible. They looked at us and they said, I do think that they thought we were a little crazy. We were opening a bar in the back of an industrial park. But they also said, we love that people are bringing new stuff to Lee County, to Southwest Florida. And it was such a great experience. The county has been absolutely great to us. And yeah, we were lucky in that respect, for sure.
Now, how much of that, so it sounded like that was a lot of Lee County. How much of the city of Fort Myers, because I would assume, are we within the municipality? No, we are not in the municipality of Fort Myers. We're just technically unincorporated?
Yeah, it's unincorporated Lee County.
Okay. So, but you are distinctly within the city of Cape Coral.
Yes.
How did that process work for you and Joanne and the team?
So it definitely got a little interesting, like I said. So first of its kind. So getting the approval from the fire marshal, then the fire marshal never had to deal with this before. So them coming and then training and working with their team and showing them, hey, this is completely new. So a lot of going through the rule books, changing some rules, or creating ones to tailor towards a distillery. And then also with federal government, being a bonded warehouse. So a lot of different hoops to jump through. And then, like I said, with Cape Coral was definitely first of its kind. So kind of creating what the rules are to tailor to that specific business.
And I would assume that going forward, if somebody were to open up another distillery, which I think they have in Lee County at the very least, or many other breweries that have opened up in Lee County, that because you've done that legwork, things are a little bit easier for them.
Yeah, I would agree with you. So
yeah, I would agree as well.
Yeah, throughout Lee County. And then, I don't know. Well, yeah, I think there's a couple more that are in unincorporated Lee County now, outside of the city limits for sure. Yeah.
And I was going to say there's a lot of breweries that have opened up, not just Southwest Florida, but Lee County in particular. In fact, I know there's one that's about to open up here in a couple of months, I would assume. How many of them have come to your door and said, "Hey, this is what I want to do. I want to be what you want to be. What do I need to take care of?"
Just about all of them.
Yeah. And a lot of the guys come by, see what we're doing, ask questions and hang out. And
that's one of the more unique things, I think, of both of our industries, I would assume, the brewing and the distilling industry, is that we're friendly and we help each other out. Last night for 4 hours, Rob was on the phone with the owner of Crooked Thumb, helping him troubleshoot his keg washer. We want everyone to succeed, and we collaborate and we work together.
Yeah, very open door policy. So especially at the distillery, the door's always open. We always have, with the tours, you'll see a lot of people go through. They'll go through 5, 6, 7 times, asking a bunch of questions, or randomly coming in, just kind of trying to learn like lessons learned or what not to do, or what can help them what can help them and make them be successful.
Interesting. And with the people that have come through your door, I kind of want to backtrack a little bit as well, because you did mention that, the original idea was to be open 2 days a week and brew one. How quickly did it become apparent that you not necessarily have bitten off more than you can chew, but this is definitely something, a bigger calling than you had anticipated?
So the day after our grand opening, we ordered 2 more fermentation tanks. We started with 2 7-barrel makeshift fermentation tanks. They weren't jacketed, so Rob concocted this.
They've got cooling coils that go down the middle of them because they didn't have glycol jackets. They're uninsulated. Yeah. I mean, they work.
So that's how we started, with those 2 7-barrel tanks. And the Sunday after we opened, we reached out to purchase 2 20-barrel fermenters. That order went through that Monday. So almost immediately we knew that we needed more fermentation space. And then Rob left his day job 1 year to the day of our grand opening. And he did that a little late. And he did that a little late because I was concerned. We got all of our health benefits through his job. He had a very successful career in software development, and I was nervous about losing that stability.
Makes a lot of sense.
After he left, that we saw considerable, and after he left, he could focus on the brewery. We saw a considerable amount of growth. We hired a sales rep. Soon after that, he actually started as a volunteer. He came to us and said, "Hey, give me 2 months. It was either 2 or 3 months. Let me show you what I can do. I mean, if you like what I'm doing, then we'll talk about hiring me or a position." And within a month of him starting, we were talking about how to hire him, how to make it work on both sides. TJ came to us, about 2 years after we opened?
Yeah. So I came in August of 2015.
Yeah. And I mean, that's really what it's about, is the people that put their heart and soul into Fort Myers Brewing, into any brewery, probably into any business. They are the success of the business. They are the heart and soul of the business.
And that's got to be a little bit difficult for you, because obviously you're sitting beside 2 gentlemen who do not own the businesses that they are with. How is it, how difficult is it to have something that you've worked on and you've built with your own hands, and to be able to entrust a portion of it to a person who is not you and say, go? Always wanted to ask that question of a business owner.
There are challenges to that for sure. But when you find people who make it their baby as well, like TJ has, it makes it a whole lot easier. It's and you have to do it. There are a handful of things that I still hold on to. I do our payroll still, but the more that I can get off my plate and let others who are way better at it than I am take things and run, the better Fort Myers Brewing is. Rob, he hasn't brewed a beer, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, it's been a while since I've even brewed a beer, probably almost 2 years now. Got the staff that can do it. And I mean,
and we're brewing the best beer we've ever.
Definitely. I feel that they're doing a better job than I could do at it. So, but I mean, if they need me to fill in, I could brew a batch of high five for them. No problem.
And what I kind of want to do is dovetail into a conversation about getting the beers out into the market. Because especially when Fort Myers Brewing opened for the craft beer industry, it was just, you get into the market. That is what you do. You have to have your cans on a shelf. And that has sort of changed a little bit. And now I see a lot of new breweries that don't want market placement at all. They don't even want their kegs out in the market. They want, sorry about that, Jimmy. They want, just be the tap room. And even some places where they've pulled back, Funky Buddha very famously has pulled back quite a bit. And so I guess back in those days when you first opened, what was it like trying to get, here's this craft brewery out into the market and onto store shelves, specifically here in Southwest Florida?
It was a big challenge. The salesperson, two-star Fred, as we called him, he knocked down doors. He worked his tail off to get us out into distribution. There were challenges of, one, will people drink craft beer? Which is, when you really stop and think about it, of course they will. People are coming here from Michigan and Wisconsin and Ohio, where craft breweries are on every other corner. And then it was, well, will they be able to keep up with production? That was one of the big challenges, and it was a challenge to keep up with production. But that's I think one of the keys to our success is that we figured out really early on that you couldn't have your tanks full in July and then be able to keep up with production in February. So we really, unless you were going to buy more tanks. And so we really, really monitored and put together formulas to be able to keep up with production. Is the product going to be the same? Is it going to be consistent? That was one of the things we heard over and over and over again. And we really dialed in that consistency. As restaurants gave us a shot, more restaurant, and we were able to prove ourselves, more came on board, and it's been a wild ride in that respect.
And I mean, craft beer is one thing, but rum, I mean, you go to a store, I think everybody, if you go through college, I'm assuming that you understand rum, but the rum is going to be in 2-liter plastic bottles.
Yeah. Jungle juice.
Exactly. So what kind of process was that, getting this out? Because not only do you have to have that, but, and I was surprised to hear this, nobody could go to the facility where it was made. Nobody could take a tour. Nobody could do a tasting. How was it trying to get this bottle out into the market without even a tap room to start off with?
So I will say very challenging. We were lucky at first with having our distributor approach us and try to represent the brand to try to, or want to sell the brand out in the stores and restaurants. You walk in a liquor store, there's, you go to a rum aisle, there's thousands of different types of rum. So what makes you stand out, or why is the consumer going to want to buy your product? So we've won a ton of awards with our spirits. We try to stick to our local roots, fresh from Florida certified, but it's educating that consumer to be able to try something different than what they're used to. And the craft movement's huge. Everyone had their picks or their go-tos, and then trying something else, and, oh wow, this is so much better than what I'm drinking every single day. So definitely the education's a huge part, and just what's standing out different for you, what makes your product stand out different on the shelves than everyone else, or what definitely the whole craft movement, and Southwest Florida's been great to us. We've really started pretty small and then blew up throughout the whole entire state. But it definitely has its challenges still to this day, trying to keep up with production, making sure everything's good, making sure everything lines up. And then, out in the left field, you get a huge order for, you weren't expecting or weren't forecasting for that to happen. So there's challenges every single day.
Now, you said a word that I like, and I think the word craft itself has sort of gone by the wayside. But the word local has really not only taken over the meaning of what craft was and really expanded. Can you all sort of describe what was it like trying to push the local/craft aspect back when you had first started? And then as sort of a dichotomy, what is local and how does it grab people today?
Local to me means being a part of the community. When we started, I don't think we verbalized it, but we knew we wanted that community feel, and our tap room became a community hub without us even realizing it. This is where people would come to get together with their neighbors. This is where there would be meetups here for different things. This is where people got engaged here. People met their future spouse here. We have kids' birthday parties here, and baby and wedding showers in a brewery tap room. And so we became part of the community.
And that's actually kind of an interesting story, that I've seen and interviewed a number of other breweries that will be the meeting house not only of their local government, but just the locality. In fact, there's a brewery that I had on the podcast last year. One of their big meeting rooms is just where the local high school kids go to take prom photos. It is just,
Super
that's just,
cool.
but I mean, they've got the facility for it and it's absolutely amazing. Was local a hard sell with Wicked Dolphin? Does it continue to be a hard sell, or has Florida, the opinions and the attitudes and the ideas of consumers in the state changed enough to where local now means a lot more than it used to?
So I would say, first off, there's a ton of competition, like you said. So the whole craft movement was huge. And then I feel personally that the bigger guys tried mimicking the crafts, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But local is huge. Without the community support, we would be nothing. And, you can never forget where you came from. That's why with our company, Wicked Dolphin, just like Fort Myers Brewing, always give me back to the community. Anytime anything comes up where we can help out with, always there. First ones to always step up. Hence getting back to 2020 when we collaborated with the hand sanitizer with COVID. Everything was shut down, no way to do anything. There was such a high demand. And then, when Joanne reached out to Jen, not a problem at all. We can use the fermentation tanks here to be mass produced a lot more hand sanitizer than we currently can only make at our facility. So I think local's huge, and the local movement is still every single day is getting still bigger and bigger. Very big about educating, educating the consumer, I feel, is the key, but local, with the roots of with your community, definitely. Like I said, we'd be nothing without the community.
Yeah, I mean, what do we do? Just over 5,000 gallons of wash for hand sanitizer?
It was absolutely insane. So having the hospital come every single day, take hundreds of gallons, and then just how open and just, yes, no problem at all. And we're able to produce it all.
Yeah, and we didn't charge anything for that. So here we are in the thick of COVID.
Well, how do you get started, like, even going through that process? Because I'm sorry, hand sanitizer for me is this medical. I see people in white lab coats with like the weird Bunsen burner things that you see in like Frankenstein movies. and so many breweries, a lot of, let's make hand sanitizer. How does that conversation even start?
So it started at home with me and Rob, and I started getting wind of breweries and distilleries making hand sanitizer. And I mean, during COVID, we've got major anxiety. We're not doing the things that we normally do. And I looked at him and I said, can we do this just to give us a sense of purpose? And he was like, no, Jen, can you imagine what would happen if we got it wrong, the liability? And I want to say about 2 days later, the county reached out, the economic development, and asked if we could do hand sanitizer. And I ended up meeting one of the county officials here. We sat 3 tables apart and were yelling about how to make this work, and finally came up with the solution of Wicked Dolphin and Fort Myers Brewing working together, because we don't have the still and they didn't have the fermentation space. And so the county spearheaded getting us together and making that work. And then specifically for Lee Health, because there was concern about the whole community, but there was great concern about our medical community and making sure they had the resources that they needed. And so that's where it started. And it really, for me personally, it gave me a sense of purpose during COVID. And I think that's true for our entire team. It's something to do for the community, something to do as a business. Although again, we didn't charge for it. It just seemed like the right thing to do.
And how difficult is it to get that produced from a legal standpoint? Because obviously you have the ability to make beer and some other stuff, and you make spirits. Were you the ones was Wicked Dolphin the one that was able to technically ferment the alcohol because you had the ability to make something a little bit higher proof than what Fort Myers Brewing
Yes.
did?
So the story goes, Lee Health actually reached out one night to our owner, Joanne, and said, we're going to be out of hand sanitizer. Can you guys switch over? She said, no, we can't. We don't know how to do that. She ended up going on the World Health Organization, getting a recipe on how to make hand sanitizer, and then said, okay, if we could get these certain ingredients, we're able to produce with the high proof spirits. And that's basically how it came about. There was some legal aspects or with the bottling, but at that time, a lot of things were shut down. So you couldn't call up the federal government or you couldn't call up your county and say, hey, what do I need to do on this? Is to get the produced as quick as possible and into the right hands, especially for our frontline or first responders.
Did you ever sell the hand sanitizer to the general public? I know some other breweries, some did, some didn't because they wanted to focus on the hospitals and whatnot.
Fort Myers Brewing, we did not sell. I think we did give some away.
Yeah, we did some giveaways. I know on the other coast, West Palm gave a ton away. At the facility, we gave away thousands of bottles and throughout the whole community. So if you needed it and you say, hey, we needed hand sanitizer, you were getting it one way or the other.
But there's no danger of completely switching away from spirits or beer and moving solely into the hand sanitizer market.
No.
Have you ever tried to drink hand sanitizer?
Well, no. Never wanted to, actually.
Beer's much better.
Yeah, you don't want to. We're happy that that's over and we're back to producing spirits.
So there we go with the first part of our interview. Come back next week and you'll hear the rest of it to hear some really interesting ideas and also talk about that collaboration rum that is going to be coming up and the beer that's going to be coming right before it. If you have not done so, please make sure to follow us on social media. We are at Florida Beer Blog on Instagram, X, Threads, Blue Sky. We're FL Beer Blog on Facebook because reasons. You can also find us on the internet at floridabeerblog.com and floridabeerpodcast.com. And you can email us at any time at floridabeerblog@gmail.com. We are available on pretty much every podcasting app you can think of. Amazon Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify. And make sure to follow us and like and subscribe and give us a nice 5-star review. It really does help people get the word out. We're even on YouTube. You can find us there. And when you continue to listen to the Florida Beer Podcast, you'll know that we are a proud member of the Florida Podcast Network, a collection of amazing podcasts by Floridians, for Floridians and beyond, and all about Florida. You can find more information on them at floridapodcastnetwork.com. Our intro announcer is Jeff Brozovich. Field producer is Steve Piccola. Executive producer for the Florida Podcast Network and Grand High Poobah is Jimmy Lagonier. This is David Butler, your host and author. I will see you all next week. Have a great day and drink Florida craft.